Today, major cryptocurrencies slump as we head into the holiday weekend. The CFTC wants to let foreign crypto exchanges serve U.S. customers. And Ben Kurland, CEO at crypto research platform DYOR, provides his September outlook for digital assets. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Brandon Gomez. Digital currencies turning lower as we head into the holiday weekend here in the U.S. By noon Eastern, Bitcoin dropped under 4% to the $108,000 level, and in fact, its lowest level since the beginning of July. Ether slumped more than 4% to just above $4,300, while XRP fell 5% to $283. If we look at the week, Bitcoin is facing back-to-back weekly losses after its worst week since February. It's down more than 7% in the past 7 days. Meanwhile, ETH's tracking for a more than 10.5% decline since last Friday for its worst weekly performance since April. It's not all bad news for ETH, though. As we get ready to close out August, Ether's up more than 15% since the start of the month, while Bitcoin's tracking for a 7% decline month to date. Okay, let's talk about the top stories. American Bitcoin, the Bitcoin miner backed by Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr., is aiming to start trading on the NASDAQ next month. That's according to Reuters, which cited the company's largest investor. The firm reportedly locked in crypto and traditional investors to back an all-stock merger with Griffin Digital Mining that will soon allow the miner to start trading on the NASDAQ. The merger is reportedly set to be finalized soon. We spoke with Asher Ganoot, the CEO of Hut 8, which owns a majority stake in American Bitcoin, last week. And he told CNBC Crypto World that he and Eric Trump plan to be at the NASDAQ early next month, but didn't specify why. We reached out to Hut 8 and didn't hear back right away. Eric Trump and Don Jr. have become major players in the Trump family's growing crypto empire. Speaking at Hong Kong's Bitcoin Asia 2025 conference today, Eric Trump discussed his involvement in crypto and made bold predictions for the price of Bitcoin, saying he's certain the cryptocurrency will eventually hit a $1 million valuation. The Trump brothers are also scheduled for trips to South Korea and Singapore in the coming months for other crypto events in Asia. Next, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission want to clear a way for international exchanges to serve U.S. customers. The agency's acting chair, Caroline Pham, announced that the Division of Market Oversight had a new advisory for Foreign Board of Trade, or FBOT, registration. In the past, Americans could trade on foreign exchanges that registered through the commodity regulator's FBOT process. But the CFTC now looks to include digital assets in that rule. The new guidance lets exchanges that are legally organized and operating outside of the United States to provide U.S. resident access to trading. In the statement, Commissioner Pham said the new FBOT advisory, quote, provides the regulatory clarity needed to legally onshore trading activity that was driven out of the United States due to the unprecedented regulation by enforcement approach of the past several years. Many foreign crypto exchanges have barred access to U.S. users over regulatory uncertainty, and that led to many companies having separate U.S.-focused divisions. At the same time, that barrier might have insulated some of Americans from the worst of the 2022 crypto meltdown, as companies like FTX were forced to create separate entities rather than serve U.S. customers directly. All right, turning back to the markets for our main story as we wrap up the month of August. Earlier this week, Crypto World's Tanea McKeel spoke with Ben Kurland, CEO at crypto research platform DYOR, about what we can expect in the month to come.
I want to look at the month ahead. It is, a typically seasonally weak period that we see before October and a Q4 rally. Is anything, I don't want to be too lazy about it though. So is there anything about that blueprint that you see going differently this year?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that I think are going to echo where the timing is really quite perfect. It's matching up with a lot of the previous 4-year Bitcoin halving cycles and that narrative. There's a number of things that are particularly unique about this cycle and this particular time. And so I kind of do want to pinpoint those because I think it might have a different effect than what we're used to. Obviously, we have a bit of tailwinds and a bit of headwinds coming in on a macro level. We've got the tariff talk and a lot of uncertainty around that. Now, obviously, Trump has paused the tariffs for China for 90 days. And I think that gives us kind of the breathing room and the timing of the cycle that a lot of the market is looking for. On the tailwind side of things, you have Jerome Powell's recent speech at Jackson Hole. I think came as largely a surprise. I think mostly the market had priced in a rate cut. I think after the PPE numbers came in, that kind of poured a little bit of cold water on that. I think people were starting to get concerned. And you especially saw it in the crypto markets over the more traditional markets, just in terms of, the odds diminishing. They went from about 85% yes to all the way down to 60% right before his speech. And then, of course, he surprised all of us, I think, a bit with really dovish perspective on the change in markets, and that now is the time to make a pivot.
So there's a lot of macro in this answer, which aligns with what, how I'm seeing the market and all of the conversations I'm having. This summer has very much been about, the trend in this new cohort of crypto treasury companies and that institutional adoption story. Of course, we're seeing some choppier trading now as that macro picture comes back into play. For September, given that there is a highly anticipated Fed meeting in the middle of the month, how do you see those two things, that dynamic kind of playing out, the adoption versus the narrative?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of push and pull happening right now. Typically, September is a weaker month. If you look back historically through the September months in the cycle, that echoes as well. So I think you are going to see potentially a little bit further downside action. We want to see where Bitcoin settles. It's right about at the precipice of a big resistance level here in the 110, 111 range. There's further support down at 108, and then even larger support down at the 105 level. So we're really kind of monitoring these things closely to see if there's any kind of early September flush out. But I think that regardless of where this ends up, regardless of which level this ends up, what we're going to see is a pretty steep reversal bouncing off of one of these support levels in about a week to 10 days prior to the FOMC. I think people are going to start to build up the excitement with the expectation of that rate cut. And if and when that rate cut actually happens on the 17th, provided that the CP and the PPE number, CPI and the PPE numbers hold tight on around the September 11th, September 12th releases, then it should be really smooth sailing. And I think we're going to see a bit of a celebratory market push up to the north post the September 17th date. And I think that rally is going to extend into what is likely to be a euphoric peak sometime in late October or possibly early November.
What about for ETH? You just laid out some support for Bitcoin. What are the key support and resistance levels you see for ETH as it's just broken an all-time high? And it's kind of new ground for this coin. We saw it get to 4,800 a few years ago. And since then, every time it's approached 4,000, it's really wrestled with that and not been successful until now. The price targets that you see on ETH are very high through the end of the year. What do you see happening here? Do you see it kind of getting through September and then rallying to still new highs, or do you see it wrestling with 5,000 a little bit more? And then again, what are those key resistance and support levels?
Yeah, so ETH has got a really strong narrative at the moment. We see a lot of capital shifting from Bitcoin to ETH. That's typical of late stage cycles behavior. So we see a lot of people that are just migrating. But in addition to that, and this is kind of unique for this cycle, is all of the institutional money, particularly revolved around the concept of the treasury reserves, right? So we've seen that narrative play out with Bitcoin. It's been incredibly successful, very bullish. Now, all of a sudden, that same narrative is being applied to Ethereum. I think that Ethereum has been incredibly undervalued for a very long time. It is the underpinning of the ecosystem. Stable coins are, the vast majority of them are being held on the Ethereum layer 1 network in particular. And then there's, of course, this massive ecosystem as well. So I see that there's going to be a lot of support for this. The reason why I mentioned Bitcoin first is because the market kind of follows Bitcoin. So Ethereum tends to trail behind, but we are seeing a bit of a reversal of the ratio of Bitcoin and Ethereum, which is a really strong indication that we're going to see higher levels for Ethereum. That's why I'm putting my price targets so high for the end of the year on Ethereum, both because of the undervaluation and because of the significant tailwinds and the capital rotation.
Ben, we've never had so many different ways to get exposure to crypto. So there are the coins themselves. There are still the ETFs. We're looking at innovation in those ETFs. And then as we've been talking about this whole world of crypto stocks, which is no longer limited to just, Coinbase and Robinhood. It's this new cohort of crypto accumulators / treasury companies. It's Circle as the stablecoin play. It's Galaxy, which was recently uplisted to the NASDAQ. What's a good spot to be in September? And are there any, spots that you would steer clear of?
I would say that you're going to be paying a bit of a premium if you go into something like an ETF. Those are providing, the more traditional markets with exposure to Bitcoin, but you're paying a premium on top of that. So I would say if you want direct exposure, you should go get some. And, probably the best, most mainstream way of doing something like that is on a platform like Robinhood or Coinbase. My personal take, though, is that there is far more upside, at least in the short term, with Ethereum and some of the larger cap, call them top 10, top 15 by market cap size tokens. I just think that, again, they're sort of undervalued. Most of the money has been pouring into Bitcoin, and I think the attention is starting to shift to the others. So if your goals are short term, what should I be buying in September with the hope of making a profit by the end of the year, I would suggest looking into Ethereum, possibly Avalanche, Solana, Chainlink, some of these larger coins that have been around for a while, so they're also well established. And if you're looking for more long-term goals, I think you're probably going to want to see if there's a good dip buying opportunity for Bitcoin or Ethereum. These are the two mainstays within the cryptocurrency world, and they're going to be around for a very long time with the government support, with the treasury reserves. I think we're seeing a dynamic shift in policy and procedure when it comes to the two top cryptocurrencies.
Okay, that's all for Crypto World this week. We'll be back on Tuesday after the Labor Day holiday. We'll see you then.